first bit tonight, the top bit tonight, because it is the most demanded. It's all the fucking Nintendo talk that happened over these last couple of weeks. So we're going to cover this as quickly as possible because we've actually technically talked about some of this in the pre-show of the podcast that doesn't necessarily get onto the RSS feed. So we will briefly cover it here, but yeah, we've actually talked about a lot of this stuff, so get ready to hear a bunch of repeats, honestly, with some of this stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into this first off. Probably the biggest piece of this whole thing, the Mario movie cast has been revealed. Just to give people kind of a gist of the castings and all that, we have Chris Pratt, who is playing Mario, and the internet imploded. We have Jack Black playing Bowser, and the internet imploded. And we have Keegan-Michael Key playing Toad, and the internet imploded. And Anya Taylor-Jordan playing Princess Peach, and the internet did not implode. But with
and we also have Charlie Day as Luigi.
Thank you. And Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. It's official. Donkey Kong is going to be in the Mario movie. So at that point, I'm only expecting that there will be a Marvel-type Easter egg hinting at the Donkey Kong Country movie that will be coming out from Illumination next. With that, let's briefly kind of go over this. You guys' thoughts on the cast reveals for the Mario movie?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Can I just find like a Ren and Stimpy quote of the horse? No, sir, I don't like it.
Not at all. And I mean, I can pretty much summarize my entire thought process succinctly. I don't like that this is basically turning into yet another celebrity-filled voice cast for yet another Illumination film, especially considering that you have Charles Martinet right frickin' there.
And he's
I understand.
And he's in the cast.
Doing cameos.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all he's gonna do. And I understand the idea of, oh, well, we can't have Charles Martinet, doing all the voices. I get that. But bring in people who can actually voice act. We don't care about the celebrity voices. You don't need the celebrity voices to draw people to the box office. It's frickin' Mario!
I mean, okay, in defense, I will say, from what I have heard of Chris Pratt, he's fairly good when it comes to the right character. Jack Black, kind of the same thing. You have to put him in the right place. But I will totally give it to you. The last time I heard Keegan-Michael Key or Jordan Peele in any animated movie, they weren't the best. And then also Seth Rogen. Yeah, he's a late night host. So at that point, I don't know how he's going to be able to do Donkey Kong.
Confusing him with Myers, because Seth Rogen doesn't have the talk.
I might be confusing him with Seth Myers.
Yeah, Seth Rogen is basically like Pineapple Express, The Interview, often works with James Franco.
I'm mixing them up. Yeah, I'm totally mixing them up. So, maybe
although
he'll be able to pull off...
I would be curious to see what a Seth Rogen talk show would look like now. Probably would be pod related.
Probably. Does he not have a podcast? Everybody has a podcast now. As everybody likes to point out to me in the comment section, everybody has a podcast. Why is yours more important? Because I'm not playing Metroid now. That's why. Okay, I'm good. Alex, your thoughts on the Mario cast?
Exactly what Romney said.
No, sir, I don't like it.
Yep, don't like it. It's another pointless celebrity cameo. Not even cameo, it's just another pointless celebrity-filled cast.
I think
you have the original voice actor there. Just use him. I don't get it.
This is why I'm kind of giggling at it at the moment, is like, in the past, when the Sonic movie was being debated, it was literally kind of this divide, where you guys were somewhat excited, you guys were somewhat optimistic, and I was, no. And I was not willing to do any of that. I have since seen the Sonic movie, and frankly, it was actually pleasantly surprising. Although I will probably have the unpopular opinion saying Jim Carrey saved Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't think he did. But that being said, like this was the dynamic that went into that movie, and now I'm kind of laughing because it's going to be the opposite dynamic for the Mario movie. I'm going to be the one that's super stoked because like I'm looking at this and going, I mean, I'm worried about a few of the roles, but Chris Pratt as Mario, I'm like, I could dig that. Jack Black as Bowser, that took some warming up to because I was more worried that Jack would go into his his band days and try to be like metal Bowser, and not that kind of metal Bowser, people. He'd be like, "Let's rock it!" And I'm just like, no, Bowser can't be that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Jack Black at least has the range. I mean, many
Mhm.
people don't. Many people often think, "Oh, yeah, he's Jack Black," but well, when you look, he's come a long way from the Tenacious D days. When you look at how he can go from playing a character like Poe, who pretty much
Yes.
was modeled after Jack Black, to then playing R.L. Stine in the Goosebumps film, which is very much like the kind of role you would not expect him to play, and on top of that, play well,
Exactly.
which he did.
This is kind of why I'm warming up to the idea of him as Bowser. It's just like, okay, yeah, he's had a bit of success and failure when it comes to voice acting, so he's gained a range because of that. The ones that I'm still up in the air about is, again, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, and it's mainly because I don't see anybody playing Donkey Kong that doesn't have a super deep voice. Because, like, I immediately think about that Donkey Kong Country cartoon where they decided to make Donkey Kong sound like this, and it always, like, racked my ears.
Yeah,
They did
and honestly, when I think of Donkey Kong, I'm just worried that they're basically going to tell Seth Rogen, yeah, we're basically trying to make our own version of Wreck-It Ralph without it being Wreck-It Ralph, and I'm just like, why? I mean, granted, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, if you're going to go that route, why not just, hire John C. Reilly, who could actually do it? But then again, that doesn't really seem like I mean, with Donkey Kong, I just don't see it. I mean, many people talk about not wanting Link to talk. I'm in the camp of Donkey Kong does not need to talk.
Well, especially since we've had failures with it. So that's
Indeed.
kind of my issue. And then the other one is Toad, for Keegan-Michael Key. I'm just like, what are we expecting here? Because the only other thing that we've heard from Toad back into the old cartoon days was, "Hi, Mario!" And you're really hiring Keegan-Michael Key to do that? I hope not.
I mean, this is probably not the same company, but remember, whoever made the Chipmunks movie hired a bunch of celebrities. Not that it mattered, because they pitched their voices up to sound like the Chipmunks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
there's nothing to say that they won't pitch anybody's voices up or down with this. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like, Toad has a
I'm-
voice.
I mean, Keegan-Michael Key at least has the skill and range that he
Yeah.
could alter his voice enough to at least try. But my worry is not so much just the
Yeah,
cast; it's
because
more.
I've seen Keegan do like improv and things like that, and he's amazing. If it was Jordan, I might be a little bit more worried because he's kind of gone more into the directing field. But yeah, I'm at least okay with that. But again, like, you're expecting him to play a character that literally sounds like, "Hey, Mario," and it seems like a waste in a weird way.
Yep. I mean, that's why I'm still of the opinion they shouldn't be doing a Mario movie. They should basically be doing either a Metroid movie or a Zelda movie, and then have Mario shorts ahead of these movies, because
Yep.
Mario as a character lends himself more to that. I mean, I see this kind of going the Looney Tunes back in action route, where they're going to put a budget into it, they're going to get a bunch of celebrities involved, and then it's just going to underperform. And then that will torpedo any other efforts of any other Nintendo franchises getting adapted. But then again, that raises the question, do we really want that under the current Hollywood system? My answer,
Not really, no.
no.
No, but then again, like, I'm also of the opinion that the current Hollywood system should not get Zelda and should not get Metroid, should get any of those, because I just don't see them doing justice to it.
No, they definitely need, like, those are franchises that need to go to people who actually, I mean, there needs to be like a family-friendly version of Adi Shankar, who's someone who's clearly passionate and is willing to respect the source material and willing to do their own thing.
That's actually
just, like,
accurate.
Yeah, because honestly, that's what we need. Because I mean, I'm like, oh, Adi Shankar, and I'm just like, I do not want Grimdark Zelda. I do not. I mean,
No.
technically, Grimdark Metroid could work.
Grimdark
Adi
Metroid
Shankar
would.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, I wouldn't necessarily say Adi Shankar would be the best person to do that. I'd be more in the camp of, oh, give it to someone like Shinji Aramaki, because that's like right up his alley. Science. That's pretty much like full-on science fiction. I mean, granted,
See,
the chances of us seeing.
The problem with Zelda is that you want that, like, that first outing to be kind of the wholesome family experience that everybody looks at Zelda to be. And what they would want to do is Grimdark Zelda, which has only happened really once or twice, Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. And that's not what people want. People want, like, whether or not people are willing to admit this, you want Wind Waker. You want something like wholesome and family friendly at that point, because that's what Zelda is to a lot of Zelda fans.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, of all the filmmakers that I could see that would at least do Zelda some semblance of justice, honestly, off the top of my head, Peter Jackson. because he understands.
He's really the only one I can think of because of his like the fact he did Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and on top of that, even if it was like fully animated, he would be a good choice. Because granted, the film underperformed, but when you look at the Adventures of Tintin, the film that he produced with Steven Spielberg, fully animated, he gets it. He gets how to inspire that sense of wonder, which that's what you need for Zelda, is that giant. You need those majestic vistas. This is why the Lord of the Rings films hold up as well as they do, because you need that sense of majesty. You need that beautiful scenery to really realize Hyrule. And I realize we're getting off topic.
We're totally getting off topic, but no, this is actually good because now we officially have it on podcast audio. This is kind of where we're standing on it. I'm optimistic. I still am withholding judgment and all that until we start seeing a trailer, because we haven't seen that yet. But right now I'm optimistic about it and absolutely hoping for the best, because like Mario is definitely, as Alex has pointed out numerous times, it is a franchise that can easily be effed up, and part of that is because there really isn't any plot line to speak of within it. So that being said, this one specifically, I know that people wanted our opinions on. So the expansion of Nintendo Online, or Nintendo Switch Online, has been announced, and as of today, we have price lines for it. So with the expansion to Nintendo Switch Online, we will get 2 new Virtual Console channels, Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis. And if you really want to, I literally know nobody who's doing this. They are going to give you a Switch Pro controller in the form of a Nintendo 64 controller or a Sega Genesis controller. So you can have that if you want it. I'm not getting it. I don't know about you guys.
Honestly, I'm not particularly impressed. And I mean, I get that Nintendo, given that this was announced in the Animal Crossing Direct, I get the whole idea of, if you buy this expanded program, you get the Animal Crossing DLC for free. But that is only really a perk for like a small portion of the fan base.
That was not a good idea to basically make that free. If anything, what they should have done, and this is going to sound really mean of me to say, but Smash Pass 2 should have been offered for free in there, because I think that would have had more impact than Animal Crossing DLC. I get it. We have Animal Crossing fans in the audience, but Animal Crossing has waned in its popularity since New Horizons has come out. And I just think like you needed to have something like Smash where it still had a lot of appeal to be able to do that proper.
Yeah. But at the same time, even Smash Pass 2, that would basically be a slap in the face to those of us, myself included, who already bought Smash Pass 2 and be like, okay.
But that's what we needed, is something to that effect, where like you had it reaching out to a lot more of the community there. And I'm just using Smash Pass 2 as an example, but and it's just because I can't think of anything else that would be able to fit that proper.
Yeah, and that's the thing that definitely irritates me, especially when you're considering how much extra they're expecting us to pay for the privilege of a select few N64 and Genesis ROMs, even though we've got the Genesis collection available on pretty much every console, including the Switch, meaning that it kind of negates the purpose of buying the add-on anyway. And as for N64 games, it's a very small, limited selection that chances are any Nintendo diehard likely already has it on their Wii or Wii U Virtual Console already.
Probably. Like some of the games that are coming out soon aren't necessarily on there, but speaking of price, so I think I've read this right. I think I understand it correctly, but Romney's here so he can help me out with this. So not only will you get the Nintendo Switch Online pack, expansion pack, which gives N64 and Sega Genesis, if you opt into this, you will also get the Animal Crossing New Horizons Happy Home Paradise DLC and I believe it's going to be $49.99 a year, which is an increase from the $19.99 a year in the baseline that was Nintendo Switch Online now. If you have a family pack, it gets a little bit more complicated, because the initial purchase for it is going to go up to $79.99 to be able to get all this stuff, and your membership goes up to $34.99 a year to be able to maintain it. And with the expansion pack, the games that you will be getting for N64 and Genesis are Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64, and yes, I like Ocarina of Time. Shut up, everybody. Mario Kart 64, Those will be the first ones. Sega will get Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Echo the Dolphin, and Streets of Rage 2. But we do know of a bunch of other games that are going to be coming out soon afterwards that are probably going to have a little bit more appeal to some of the people we're talking about. I got to tell you guys, the price increase here, I was willing to be able to do it if it was like an extra $10 to the yearly membership. Because one of the things that Nintendo really had here was the fact that their family plan was so damn cheap. Like, in a lot of cases, you kind of started to see Microsoft and PlayStation bending to that and starting to get somewhat cheaper. And now Nintendo's answer to that is to be the same tyrannical people that they've always been and increase the price by $24 instead of $10. And that's a lot more irritating. Well, I'm sure a lot of people will be like, well, no, technically it's 14. No, that's still a huge increase, guys.
I mean, if you want to, like, for the individual, it's a $30 price increase if you're going off the individual plan. And granted, $50 a year, that's comparable to Microsoft and PlayStation. But the difference is, for that same amount of money, you've got stuff like Xbox Game Pass, which gets you free games, and not just retro ones. Like, you get access to new.
The issue that's happening here is, PlayStation and Xbox are more expensive, but they have more involved into those packs than technically Nintendo does.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. I mean, the way I would see it, what it would take for me to sign on to this, because, well, the N64 games, the Genesis games, that's not enough of a draw to justify $30. If they decided to do a thing where they thought, okay, we're going to make it so that way every so often we'll release like a certain DLC for one of our first party titles, where it's like, okay, for this set month, like for this first one, we have the Animal Crossing DLC. And then for the next month, they decide, okay, well, here's a free DLC. Like, trying to think of a good example on top of my head. Like, aside from Smash Bros, I know there were like some other first-party Nintendo titles that had pretty pricey DLC. So, Age of Calamity, for example, would be like, okay, next month, like, Nintendo Switch Online members get access to all of the Age of Calamity DLC for players who have Age of Calamity. If they had kind of a rotating thing of, okay, even if it was like
instead of just having the Animal Crossing stuff, if they rotated it like you're saying, that would be a lot more worthwhile to a lot of people. That actually might be incentive to wait to buy those games until you get that, so that you can get the DLC for cheaper.
Or alternately, expand the game trials feature that they already have in Nintendo Switch Online, where instead of being like, okay, you get this limited window to try the full version of the game, be like, okay, if you're buying this expanded version, you get this game for free, and you're only able to play it if you have this active expansion subscription.
It's another flaw that Nintendo has compared to Sony and Xbox. Like, I know a bunch of people who, because they're excited for Forbidden West, have tried Horizon Zero Dawn for the first time since it came out, and the only reason they did that, it was being offered free on PlayStation. They paid nothing for it, and they were like, holy crap, this is an amazing game. I'm going to pay for the sequel. Why is Nintendo not utilizing this kind of concept instead of the trials? Like, that would be a great way to be able to bring people into new franchises.
Yeah, or at the very least, it'd be a good way to gauge interest in either possible sequels or in the like, because that would be what it would take, because what we're being offered at present, I mean, I'm fine paying $20 a year for the online play and stuff like that. I don't see myself paying $50 for it. There's a reason why I've let my PSN subscription lapse, was for precisely because the Nintendo one was cheaper, and a lot of the games that require online play on PlayStation are coming out for Switch, meaning that online play is cheaper. I mean, even though I bought Dragon Ball FighterZ Day 1 digitally on my PS4, I ended up getting it on Switch because, online play for Dragon Ball FighterZ, much cheaper per year on Switch than it is on.
And they're linked together pretty much. I think they're linked together now, aren't they?
I don't know if there's any actual cross save.
I know Guilty Gear is, but I don't know if Fighters is. So
yeah, I don't know if Fighters is, but the point stands is that, like, $20 a year, that I can see, but there's nothing that is being offered here to me that justifies paying an extra $30.
Not really. And I totally agree with this. Like, this is, for the extra amount of money that Nintendo is expecting its customer base to pay for, they need to offer a lot more than this to be able to justify it. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Like, I have no intention of purchasing these expansions right off the bat. And so this hurts both my wife as well as Alex, because they're technically both on the family plan that I have. And it's not because I'm trying to be a dick. It's just because until more N64 games and more Genesis games come out for it, I just don't see the price tag being there, kind of thing. Alex, your take on that, and also the disappointing news that I just barely gave you.
That's okay, because I wasn't really buying into this either. So, yeah, it's just not enough, and it's not worth it.
No, like, I know that people like to give guff towards Xbox and PlayStation for having the services the way that they do, but there's a reason that they do. Like, you get a lot of stuff out of that, and frankly, in terms of the PlayStation one, I can't speak for the Microsoft one because I haven't been on there enough. They make you feel like a for lack of a better term, like a platinum hotel member. Okay, you get access to free games that maybe you've never tried before. You get access to like, not just the free games, but you also get to be able to try out upcoming games that maybe are on demos. You're able to, at one point, I don't think it's in there anymore, but you could actually get PlayStation Now in there. Now they've separated that and you can't get it, but they did offer PlayStation Now at one point with your Plus subscription. So you could try out all the games that are on that service. And so it was worth a lot more than this. And this has actually been a discussion with a lot of friends of mine where we've said, like, tried to come up with solutions here to make it more worthwhile. Because and I actually like a few of the ideas. I at least want to bring one to you guys, where they basically make it a tiered membership. And instead of, okay, this is how you get the N64 and the Genesis ones, basically you get slots. So you can have two, like if you just do the $19.99, you can have two of these virtual console slots, and you could choose which two you get, kind of thing. But you have to have them for at least 30 days. After that, you can swap one and be able to mess around with them, and maybe there would be additional fees there. But if you paid the $34.99 a year, then you would get 4 slots, which would be like all of them together. But if they added more, you could keep in that tier and maybe knock it down and just say, oh, well, I'm going to swap out N64 for GBA because I'm more interested in GBA than I am N64, kind of thing. And even then, I still see kind of holding back here, because I could see a lot of people basically just go to the cheaper tier, and whenever their mood kind of suits them, they just swap in the channel that they want, kind of thing. So I wish I had a better answer to that, but Nintendo needs to rethink this a little bit.
Yep. Nintendo giveth, Nintendo taketh away. They gave us
and
Froggy Chair, and then they gave us a crappy expansion plan.
Not only that, but the controllers was... I know some people are going to fry me after this podcast, but the controllers were just lame. Okay?
Yeah.
Especially N64 and Genesis. Like, I personally don't have a beef with the Genesis controller, but the N64 one, like, it's complicated. I don't know how you can make that into a Switch Pro controller and then have kids look at it and go, yeah, I totally want to play Smash on that.
Yeah, plus the other thing to consider is that there are cheaper alternatives available. I mean, for the Genesis controller, you can literally buy USB Genesis controller. I literally gave you a Genesis 6-button controller that hooks up to the Switch via USB.
Yeah.
That is literally cheaper than what they're charging. Like, oh, $50 for these controllers. The one I got you was only $20.
It was only $20, and I have to hide it from my youngest because she likes to throw it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
She basically, I hate to tell this to Romney, but this was basically her discovery of, like, the Smash, the Smash player, thump, like using the controller as like a mace. I'm like, yeah, we're putting that back in the box, thanks.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've entered that part of childhood where, like, anything I can swing and throw, I will swing and throw.
See, my oldest is just a mellow girl, and then it's like we actually have a kid when it comes to my youngest. She's an actual kid. The other one is just like, I'm okay. So the next portion of this, and so many... Well, actually, one quick thing with these, we are going to have additional questions that people wanted to ask. This one goes to Alex, because one of the later games that has been announced for this expansion pack has been, because apparently you complained on this on a Dragon Shadow stream and I don't remember it, Pokemon Snap going to the N64 channel. And so people wanted to know your take. So now you have the brand new Pokemon Snap, but you could also have the original, plus the original Banjo-Kazooie will be coming sometime down the line too.
It's nice, I guess, but in terms of Banjo-Kazooie, frankly, I'd probably just rather play the Xbox version anyway.
Okay.
And Pokemon Snap, easily emulatable.
Yeah,
So if I really want to go
is.
back to OG Snap on N64, I can just find an emulator.
Yeah,
Yes.
like you can find an emulator, or you can easily just get a flash card for your N64 and just load the ROM onto that, so that way you get the authentic experience, or buy a repro card. I mean, I literally have a repro card of Castlevania Legacy of Darkness that pretty much runs exactly like an official card. So we got options.
We've got plenty of options. So the next big announcement that happened, and yes, we had to cover it because it is the last character of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. After this, Sakurai is done, and he will probably never return to Smash. And so I want to get Alex prepared to say a certain line as I announce this. Sora from Kingdom Hearts is officially the last character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Okay, you want me to say the line now?
Yes.
Okay. Never ask him for anything again.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, as we all have said, never ask him for anything ever again.
Yes. Now, I know that there are certain fan bases that were disappointed by this, but the funniest part about the specifically, the Waluigi fans. The Waluigi camp did not get what they wanted. Waluigi is not in Smash. Sorry. So they are the ones that are disappointed. The other ones that is disappointed, and in my opinion, rightly so, because the Dark Souls camp thought they were going to get a Smash character the way that trailer was going, and got trolled when they unveiled the Keyblade. So I do kind of feel bad for the Dark Souls community, because when you go into all the reaction videos for this, everybody assumed, Bonfire, are they going to announce a Dark Souls character? And so at that point, I get why the Dark Souls camp is mad, because they did, as far as I'm concerned, Sakurai did troll them. But the one thing that we could, that both of these communities, as well as the general Smash community, could all agree on, is that Sora was the way to end Smash. That's the funniest thing about it. Is like, I know you guys wanted Dante, and I know you guys wanted Solaire, and I know you guys wanted Waluigi, but isn't Sora a great way to end it? Yeah, it's actually a really great way to end it.
Yeah, especially considering, based on what Sakurai has said, Sora was the most requested character on the fighters ballot across all the nations.
Yes.
Because I know the official details was that Cloud was the most requested in North America, Bayonetta was the most requested in Europe, Terry was the most requested in Latin America, and I can't remember like the remaining territories, but I know that those were like the major ones, that the US wanted Cloud, Europe wanted Bayonetta, Latin America wanted Terry Bogard, and then Sora was the most requested across all of that.
What was the Japan one? I want to say it was, actually, I think that might have been Byleth. It was I want to say it was, no, actually, you know what? It might have been the hero from Dragon Quest.
Yeah, it was, now that I think about it, yeah, it was the hero from Dragon Quest, because, well, Dragon Quest is
bigger
absurdly popular in Japan, and so, yeah, that's why we got those specific requests. We got the American request, the European request, the Latin American request, and the Asian territory request, not just Japan, because Dragon Quest has as much of a foothold across a lot of the Asian countries, and with Sora being the unifying request across all territories, it was fitting. And I especially like how he explained, hey, this is why we didn't release the results of the Smash ballot, because we knew you guys would go after and harass these other companies for it, especially given how, I mean, there was probably some next-level Faustian bargaining they had to do to get Disney to sign off on it.
We're going to talk about that in a minute, because there's a little bit of a discussion that is happening now because of this. Because of the level of Faustian bargains that Sakurai had to pull off to be able to get this. But the first thing that I want to cover here is our thoughts on Sora being the final character. First of all, Sora being in Smash, and then also Sora being the last character in Smash Ultimate. Because there's actually a lot of discussion right now as to whether or not Smash Ultimate is going to be the last Smash game. Because after this, Sakurai has basically said he doesn't want to do Smash anymore. He has other projects he wants to work on. And so a lot of people are asking, well, can Nintendo even do Smash without him? And so there's a legitimate question that can happen there. Romney, your take on all of this, like Sora in there, and also can another Smash happen here?
Well, in terms of Sora being in Smash, period, it fits. And I remember when we first covered the fighter ballot, and a lot of people asking for characters like Goku to be put in, I made the argument that Sora being in Smash made more sense than even Cloud, because Sora had a game on a Nintendo console when the fighters ballot was first put in, and that was Chain of Memories on the Game Boy Advance. And so Sora is pretty much, when it comes to things like nostalgia and honoring gaming legacy, Sora is an appropriate choice. And in terms of him being the last Smash character, it's thematically appropriate.
Yeah.
Naturally, it makes sense. Like, the character that was the hardest for them to get, that they finally got, closes the whole thing out. And some people even gone that weird extra mile of Sora's reveal trailer lining up with the lyrics of, I can't remember the name of the song, but it's basically the vocal theme for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, because a lot of the whole, like, Waken the Undying Light and, like, all that stuff, it matches up visually with what we see in the reveal trailer for Sora. And, well,
and I wouldn't be
I'm quite happy with it.
I'm probably sure this was the one that had the most legal hoops to be able to get. But I also kind of wonder if Sakurai had that theme in mind. That if he got the rights to it, he would be the last character.
Yep. I mean, especially when you consider the whole light and dark theme of World of Light, it makes, I mean, if they knew, like, hey, we're planning on Sora, this is how we're going to end things, I look at this, I'm just like, you know, that explains a lot about what we got in World of Light, because of that whole light and darkness thing. It's like, yeah, it makes sense.
And also, if you look at the theme of Smash Pass 2, you could almost make an argument of it is, like, the way that Sakurai did this, it is darkest just before the dawn. Because, like, I'm trying to even remember, so Min Min was the first one, then they went into Minecraft Steve, and then it got dark with the reveal of Sephiroth. So you had a villain in there, and then you went to Kazuya, being another dark character, and then dawn breaks again with Sora joining the roster, kind of thing.
Yep. And so in terms of, like, Sora being the final character, it's thematically appropriate, and honestly, I mean, it pretty much tickled the nostalgia button, and that's kind of what Smash has always been about, is all about taking characters that we're all nostalgic over and putting them all in one place, in one giant little sandbox, as it were.
I will also say this, Kingdom Hearts community, for all the people that are mad, because apparently this is a big thing, with Sora, they also revealed his stage, which is Hollow Bastion mixed with the Station of Awakening, once you get low enough. Apparently there was enough of them mad that Twilight Town wasn't picked. And no, it needed to be Hollow Bastion. Because a lot of what made Sora good as a pick here is that they went with the original Kingdom Hearts in mind. And so at that point, you needed to have that Hollow Bastion stage to be able to do that. Because that was like the first time anybody was just legitimately wowed by Kingdom Hearts, was the reveal of Hollow Bastion. So much so, they had to reference it in the Kingdom Hearts 2 opening movie.
Yeah, plus when you really think about it, Hollow Bastion is common across all of the Kingdom Hearts games, not just the first one. You first go to Hollow Bastion in the first game, you return in the second game, you even return in some of the spin-offs, both the prequel spin-offs, and honestly, that hurts my brain trying to recall all of that. And so it's an appropriate choice of having Hollow Bastion being his stage, because that is a world that comes up time and time again throughout the series. And so it's appropriate.
I've literally seen arguments of like, no, it should have been Castle Oblivion, man. No, it should have been Traverse Town. No, it should have been Twilight. No, they picked the right one.
Yeah. I mean, I can see an argument for Castle Oblivion because of Chain of Memories, but again, But even then, there are callbacks to Hollow Bastion in Chain of Memories.
Mhm.
That's kind of how we first get the clue of, oh, something's mucking with Sora's memories. And as for the final question as to, do we see another Smash game? Honestly, I have kind of two theories about this. One, I can see them sticking with Ultimate and being like, okay, we put out a new system. Ultimate is just the game we go to because with Ultimate, if they just port it, that makes renegotiating with a lot of these rights holders a lot easier because you're not having to negotiate for any new rights. It'd be like, okay, you sign off this rights for this game. We can then clear things to port this to a later system if they decide to do that route. And so it's a lot easier, especially given that now they're pushing towards esports tournaments and stuff like that. It's a lot easier to have a solid game to maintain and build off of rather than trying to come up with a new iteration every single time now that we're in the age of DLC and firmware updates.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly convinced that they're going to, like, I know that some people are like, oh no, the team's not working on it anymore. I'm pretty sure that there's a skeleton crew working on balance for the first little bit because from what I understand, Kazuya still needs some nerfs a little bit, and same thing is probably going to be happening with Sora. So at that point, yeah, they probably have a skeleton crew there. They're going to rebalance it, and they're going to try and keep Ultimate alive as long as they can. But like a next game, I don't know. I
honestly, the way I would see it, because another factor is it's not just characters like Sora that provide hurdles. It's also hiring Sakurai, because Sakurai is no longer a Nintendo employee.
Nope.
He left. I believe it was after Brawl that he left the company.
Yeah.
And because Iwata at the time,
supposedly he has like a list of projects because of all of this interaction to get these Smash characters, he has like a list of projects he wants to do with some of these other companies.
Yeah, and likely those were part of the deal of being like, okay, we'll hand off these characters if you come and make a game for us.
Yep.
And given the amount of red tape Nintendo has to jump through to get Sakurai on board and his company, Sora Limited, to work on any Nintendo game, because it's the same problem they ran into with Kid Icarus Uprising, that's another factor, being like, okay, do we want to go through the hoops and red tape to bring Sakurai back yet again? And this was something specifically that Iwata pushed for, because Iwata made it clear, hey, Sakurai was the guy who created this. I do not see anyone else working on this. But now that Iwata is passed and we're in a new era under Shintaro Furukawa, do we see Nintendo even thinking, oh, do we want to bring him back for Smash, or do we want to just let someone else internally take it over? My guess, this would be how I would approach it if I were in a position of power at Nintendo. Rather than being like, oh, let's make like the next Smash game and just be another Super Smash Bros., I think, okay, let's take the Smash Brothers formula and maybe find a new spin on it. Okay, we've got the fighting game established, so let's, do something a little bit different with it. We can just call it Super Smash Brothers or call it a Smash game, but just under a different formula in a different genre. That would be the approach I would take, because with Ultimate,
and frankly, that's the one that kind of makes sense. Like putting on a separate team, trying to find somebody who can do something new with it, and maybe if they really want to do this, have Sakurai come on and advise. But I have a feeling he will make them pay through the nose to do that.
And it's not even making him pay through the nose. It's also because of certain facets of Japanese business law that also make it so difficult.
Oh no,
but honestly,
he'll make Nintendo pay through the nose to bring him back, kind of thing.
Yeah, and on top of that, the reason why I think it would be best if they were to do a new Smash title, I would think the approach would be a new title, not necessarily in the same genre. Maybe alternately, maybe go something in a similar Kingdom Hearts vein. It was like, okay, let's make kind of an action RPG where you explore these different Nintendo worlds and just have like a very light on story sort of affair.
Honestly, like a couple of ideas that come to mind is like, I actually liked the premise of what World of Light was trying to do. You could easily make a game based off of that, and just like kind of like in the way you're saying, like an action RPG where you're in the World of Light and you have to play as Link or whomever to be able to go forward. Or you could easily do, and I'm just saying right off the top of my head, Super Smash Bros. Warriors. Like that, but that also plays into the World of Light concept.
Yeah, or alternately, I can even just see them doing something a bit more low-key. Like, okay, you've got like this action RPG, you have a Mii character, not necessarily a Mii fighter, just to create a character, go on a little adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and to kind of circle back to the main point I'm trying to make with this is that would be the way to go, because I feel with Ultimate, we've peaked. There is no, like, where do you go after having a roster of almost 80 plus characters?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, unless you decide to do some sort of a reboot where you go really back to basics, or maybe try changing it to a one-on-one fighter in the style of something like Street Fighter, it's like, I look at this, I'm just like, where do you go from here?
Well, and on top of that, like, think about all of the levels of nostalgia that this game played off of, okay? Not just the nostalgic characters being brought in, but look at that soundtrack that they have. Seriously, Nintendo, release the soundtrack, because there's so much love put into those remixed tracks of Castlevania, of Fatal Fury, of even Tekken to an extent. Just let us have it, because there was so much nostalgic love put into this game. I just don't know how you can top it. Honestly, I don't.
Yeah, honestly, you probably can't, and that's why I think with Ultimate, we've pretty much reached the fully idealized form of what Smash was meant to be, given that it's the culmination of a lot of ideas they wanted as far back as the N64 stage. And honestly, I don't really see them topping it after this. I mean, between the size of the roster and all the red tape they had to go through, it's kind of less a question of, do we see another Smash Brothers, and it's more of a, should there even be a next Smash Brothers fighting game?
Yeah.
That's why I think the approach Nintendo should probably consider would be like, okay, taking the Smash Brothers concept and just finding something new we can do with it that may be in a different genre. It could be a fighting game. It could be, I know a lot of people are wanting a weapons-based fighter because of the amount of sword fighters, and be like, oh, just give it to the Soul Calibur people and have them do something with it.
The other question that comes up here is, like, since Bandai Namco was brought in for both Smash 4 as well as Smash Ultimate, on whether or not Bandai Namco will just take the reins on it from here on in, I don't know. It would actually be interesting, because of this partnership, to start seeing some plugins from Nintendo into franchises like Tekken and Soul Calibur. But again, like, the future is just kind of uncertain here, because Sakurai was the thing that was holding this all together, and he literally just gave us his magnum opus of Smash. So at that point, can you really top that?
Especially considering the guy literally had to, have an IV drip in his arm while working on
this game.
Yeah, it's kind of like, Sakurai, you've done enough.
He almost
take
died
a vacation.
getting the original client out, and then, from what I understand, Smash Pass 2 almost killed him too. So, yeah, he's done. Never ask Sakurai for anything, because he's given you everything and a bag of chips, all right?
Yeah, that's why I definitely think if they decide to continue the Smash Brothers franchise, maybe do kind of what Capcom did with their Versus series and be like, okay, let's see if there's some other genres we can take this idea and run with it. I mean, for all we know, strategy RPG just set with Nintendo characters. I mean, we already have, like, Mushroom Kingdom Rabbids that kind of gives an example of it.
So just make it Smash.
Yeah, it could be like, make it Smash. You could even be like, okay, you could be Famicom Wars style, it could be Fire Emblem style, or it could follow the Final Fantasy Tactics formula, like Project Cross Zone. So it's one of those things where there are options, and I think it would behoove Nintendo to think, okay, we've done well with Smash Brothers. What can we do with this idea of a crossover between our properties in a new way, in a new genre? And I think that would be the best way to go forward.
I agree. Alex, anything you want to add on this one?
I'm not really a Kingdom Hearts fan, so I'm pretty meh about Sora. Still think there's other characters that would have been better suited than
now
Sora.
We have like 4 or 5 YouTube videos being made against us. How dare you not like Sora?
So, alright, I guess.
Okay, so at that point, do you think this is going to be the last Smash?
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you guys have certainly posed some good ideas about where they could go. I'm personally not keen about the whole doing strategy RPGs, because those are games I already really don't care much. It'd be kind of cool to see this done in a more traditional RPG sense, but probably wouldn't.
It was either Cross Zone or maybe I'm thinking of another crossover with Capcom where they actually just did like a straight up JRPG for it.
Not quite. I mean, in terms of the crossover games, what we got was with Namco Cross Capcom and then later Project Cross Zone. Those were all strategy RPGs. I don't think we ever actually got like a traditional JRPG crossover in that style. I mean, Capcom has loaned out characters to other series that have done it, but they haven't really done it in-house. Which, granted, that could be something they could approach Capcom about, maybe being...
like a
Yeah,
Super Smash Bros. RPG.
Yeah, like maybe it's something in the style of something like Golden Sun. I mean, I can see them easily doing that, but again, it's one of those things where Nintendo is probably thinking, how the hell are we going to top this? Because this was a pain in the ass to pull together.
Yeah.
Perhaps, seeing as season passes tend to be things now, like, maybe swap out the rosters, right? And like now every season you make a bunch of you grab a bunch of new characters from other titles, other franchises. You can put the other ones to the side for a while and grab a bunch of others from that you haven't tapped in before. You can't go back into the Sega and Capcom and Konami universes and grab them all for other and have like wholly new fleshed out rosters. You don't necessarily have to keep using the same characters that we've had since the start and since the last 2 or 3 games.
Sure.
You can maybe try some new characters out in like a seasonal deal or whatever.
Yeah, now I'm just worried that they're going to try to make a Smash MOBA because, well, we already got that with Pokemon Unite, and I can also see Nintendo going that route, being like, oh, let's try to get that League of Legends money again.
Yeah, I hope not. I really hope not. So the last little bit of the Nintendo talk is actually something geared a little bit more towards myself and Romney here, because in the initial first direct that kind of covered the Mario movie reveal and all that, there was a bunch of announcements that were done for the holidays for that one. And in particular, the one that everybody wanted to bring to our attention, I find it funny that Alex actually found the story, just to make sure that we talked about it, was the Castlevania Advance Collection. Now, this wasn't the only nostalgia bit that was catered to veteran Nintendo owners, because you also had a remake of, I believe, the original ActRaiser, also released that day, along with the Castlevania Advance Collection. So they did a lot of that catering, but the Castlevania Advance Collection, Konami announced that they basically brought Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and Aria of Sorrow, and the original Super Nintendo Dracula X, the one that was horribly butchered, all in a pack. So, first of all, thoughts on that, Romney? Because, like, the advanced games, that is amazing and I love it, but then you threw in the craptastic Dracula X when your fan base is literally screaming for Symphony of the Night to make it to Switch. Wouldn't you have been better to do that and just put all of the GBA Metroidvanias and then the game that inspired them?
Yeah, alternately, I would be in the different camp of why throw Dracula X and instead of, Dawn of Sorrow, the sequel to Aria of Sorrow, a game that you literally had a mode that took out the sigil drawing mechanic because you realized it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
I look at this and I'm just like, you have Aria of Sorrow, why not have both Sorrow games on the same collection, so that way we get the full story of Summer Cruz? And I even look at this and I'm just like, okay, there had to have been at least other Castlevania titles, even ones that are technically canon according to the EGA timeline, that could have been considered.
Yeah.
Now, for Symphony of the Night and for the PC Engine English translated version of Dracula X, I can kind of understand why they can't bring it over, because the Symphony collection was made by Bluepoint and is a Sony exclusive. There's actually like legal contract stuff, but then at the same time I'm just like, okay, why not just port the Dracula X Chronicles then?
Exactly.
Which is not as beholden to it.
That? Because look, I know that there are some weird Castlevania fans out there that like to have everything, and that includes the butchered Dracula X. But a majority of those fans are like, they'd rather have Rondo of Blood. And so at that point, you might as well just port Dracula X Chronicles over, and that way you also get kind of the new dub of Symphony of the Night. But, there is a huge demand on Switch to get Symphony of the Night. Why not capitalize on that?
Yeah, and looking at that, I'm just looking at this and I'm just like, okay, if you couldn't think of a fourth game, then just keep it at 3 and just keep it like, okay, we're going to limit it to the GBA games, because that's all we were able to put together, and that would have been fine. Honestly, that would have been fine. I mean, still, probably would have been smarter to put Dawn of Sorrow with Aria of Sorrow, but this is Konami we're talking about. They're going to do this stuff as cheaply as possible.
They are, but this actually kind of goes into a question that we did get in regards to this. So from what I understand, financially, the Advanced Collection did fairly well. So it did sell out really, really well, and I think one of the big reasons it did was because it was available that day. So they capitalized on the hype and they got it out, and they were able to get some good sales. But the question in particular is, are those sales going to justify a DS collection? So that at that point you get Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, and Order of Ecclesia onto Switch. And that one, the only hang-up that I had with that, and you kind of answered it, was the whole glyph mechanic in Dawn. But I think they fixed that. So at that point, yeah, you probably could do that.
To a point. Problem is, like, there was the glyph mechanic and the sigil mechanic in Dawn of Sorrow, but the other problem is that Portrait of Ruin, if you're playing on Sisters mode, that's a mode that requires the touchscreen. You can't just control that with buttons. And stupidly enough, they literally didn't put in a left-handed mode, and they literally asked Iga about it. And when I saw that interview, I was upset, but in hindsight, I realized, oh yeah, well, this is Konami being Konami. They're going to do this as cheaply as possible.
Yeah.
And so they could port Portrait of Ruin, because you would, like, playing the main story, Richter mode and Old Axe Armor mode, you could easily port over. There's not a lot of mechanics you lose with the lack of a touchscreen. Sisters mode would basically be unplayable unless they do something similar to the Skyward Sword HD, where they somehow map it to the right joystick. But I don't see Konami putting in that kind of effort.
The other thing I've heard on that is, like, basically take the uniqueness of Sisters mode and basically make them like a mimic of Jonathan and Charlotte. And I don't, because I haven't played Sisters mode in forever, so at that point, I don't know if that
it wouldn't really work. Considering the design with Sisters mode, where you're able to slash, and it's pretty much, you would have to essentially do what they did with Okami when they ported it, where it's like we've mapped it to the right analog stick to get the brush strokes, because, well, when you're playing as Stella, that's how you slash the enemies, is that you swipe on the touchscreen. I mean, that's why I think the right joystick would be the best way, because with Stella, you're able to slash. Loretta, you literally just tap and hold, and that's something you could easily just map to the right trigger, and it's like, okay, point in a direction, you have the ice beam going. Like, that would be the way to do it, but again, Konami would do this as cheaply as possible. They're not going to put in the effort. And as for Order of Ecclesia, by that point they realized, okay, we're not going to really bother with the touchscreen gimmick. We're just going to mainly focus on... We're just mainly going to use the second screen as a glorified map, which... So yeah, like Dawn of Sorrow, they could find a way to make it work, because, well, you literally just disabled the mode when you made Julius mode, so that would take less effort on Konami's part, so I can see Dawn of Sorrow getting ported in that way. Portrait of Ruin would take a little bit more tweaking. I mean, unless they got rid of Sisters mode, which, granted, a lot of people would be really upset with that, because, well, that was a cool feature. Granted, narratively, it just says, oh, well, this is how the sisters got captured by Bronner when they came to the castle to find their father, who tried to stop the resurrection of Dracula, and all of that stuff. Spoilers for what I'm assuming is now like a 15-year-old game at this point. And as for Order of Ecclesia...
They all try to bring back Dracula.
Yeah, but it's more specifically the reveal of Eric Lecard is an actual reveal in the game.
Yes,
so and so with Order of Ecclesia, that one would be the easiest to port, because there isn't really anything reliant on the touchscreen in that game specifically. Like, not from what I remember, no, there was nothing that really used the touchscreen. They literally just let you use the second screen as a map, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And so with a DS collection, I can see Konami entertaining the idea, but again, they're going to do this as cheaply as possible, so unless they have a studio that is saying, hey, we're willing to put in the work and effort, I don't really see it happening.
And from what I understand, there are devs from certain companies that have said that they would gladly do that, one of which I know is Mercury Steam, but I don't know. Nintendo might have other plans for them. So at that point, just to kind of wrap up the Nintendo stuff, my final thoughts on Sora and also kind of addressing the Castlevania stuff. I like the fact that Sora is in there, but it still does make me kind of sad, because I remember hearing some of the cool ideas that people were screaming about with characters like Ryu Hayabusa, as well as Fulgore from Killer Instinct. Like, not only would you get Ryu Hayabusa, but you'd get the Ninja Gaiden collection on Nintendo Switch. via streaming mode. So I kind of like that because Ryo Hayabusa had a history with the NES. And then I also like the Fulgore rumor, which was basically that coupled with Fulgore in the game, you would also get Killer Instinct coming to Nintendo Switch, and the announcement that Killer Instinct 2 was in progress. But I already know that wouldn't have happened either, because Phil Spencer about 2 months ago basically said they don't have a team. Like, they would love to be able to get Killer Instinct 2 going, but they have no team, no offer to do it. So at that point, because they're being really selective with that, so it's disappointing. But Sora was the way to end it. As far as Sakurai, I'm actually more interested in what he's going to do after Smash than Smash, because you got to remember, guys, like, he's been in the same box for years. Either he was making Kirby games or he was making Smash games. And so now I'm kind of like with Hideo Kojima. I'm more interested in what's going to happen when he breaks out of the box than keeping him in there. Especially considering all of the hoops that he had to have gone through to be able to get some of the characters that were in there. Because, I mean, Sora's the biggest one, but he had to make a lot of deals with companies like Capcom, Microsoft, SNK. The list goes on. And so it'll be interesting to see what he does next with some of those companies.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the next thing he has to work on is a Disney game, if that was part of the deal that he had to cut with Disney for Sora. I can see, like, hey, design a game for us.
I don't know. And it's kind of weird in that regard, because it kind of makes me wonder, if you look at all the references to Kingdom Hearts in it, there's no Disney references in it at all. So at that point, maybe that was the deal. Like, he couldn't have Disney references. So I don't know. As far as the Castlevania stuff, I have the Advanced Collection. I've played it a little bit here and there, just because I wanted to get my hands on Aria of Sorrow and Harmony of Dissonance again. Do I think a DS collection is going to happen? Well, there's two answers to that. One, you have to motivate Konami. If it doesn't make enough money, Konami is not going to do it. They just won't care. If it earns enough money, then they have to be able to find a team that is going to do justice to those games. And that's kind of the problem, is like Nintendo incentivized companies, specifically Konami, to integrate the touchscreen into the games. And so at that point, they got additional funding and whatnot because of that. And the glyph mechanic with Dawn, I completely forgot about Sisters Mode and Portrait. Those are things that you now have to address. And how you address it is very interesting. So I think it's possible, but you have to be able to get the right people working on it. Let's put it that way. The other thing that I kind of want to get into, and this will be kind of the wrap-up of Nintendo Talk tonight, is this has been a discussion that has been going on online ever since the reveal of Sora. Has Sakurai officially gained video game developer godhood out of this?
I'd say so.
Like, I've seen literally a bunch of people going, okay, he's as great as Miyamoto. Wait, maybe he's greater than Miyamoto. He's as great as Kojima. Wait, he might be better than Kojima. And part of that is just because of all of the hoops that he had to jump through to get these characters. So at that point, like, you know, I am very excited to see what he does in the future, but I have to ask this amongst you guys because it's an interesting topic. Has he achieved godhood in video game dev status?
Yes, I say so. I mean, how many video game developers have gone on to become household names? You know, there's a handful of them. You got people like Miyamoto and Iwata and so on. But so to become a household name in a industry that's not particularly known for a lot of big household names compared to like the movies or television, I'd say, yeah, he's truly achieved status. And just for having the original vision to make this game with Nintendo characters and really putting himself out there on the line to go to Nintendo and pitch this to them.
I will tell you guys right here and now that one of the balance patches has to have this in it. And if not, then they have missed an opportunity. There needs to be a new stage literally just called Sakurai's Desk. And all you do is you take some of the this is going to sound mean, but I'm not meaning it that way. Some of the cringiest moments from his Smash reveals and just have him reacting to the gameplay, okay? Because one of the things I specifically want is, I don't know if you guys actually watched this trailer, but Sakurai reacting to Sora going, yeah, was the greatest, most cringiest thing he could have ever done. And the other one that I like is where he was cursing himself out because he died to Kazuya. Like, he literally died to Kazuya on the stream, and he's like, hey, you know, and he literally gets mad. So I now need this as a Smash stage of him, like, all of his directs where he had the cringy moments and just have those as reactions. So somebody gets knocked off, he's like, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would go a different route. Rather than it being like a reaction from like the Sakurai stuff, I would say, hey, make a stage out of the desk we see from the original Super Smash Bros. For N64.
That too.
Given that we saw it in the intro, that would be a full circle way. But the poor guys worked hard enough. Let's just let him rest. And to echo Alex's point,
I'm not saying this to be mean. I love Sakurai. And in my opinion, he is way more animated than Miyamoto is. So at that point, that's why I want those moments, because he is literally, like, I'm thoroughly convinced he thinks US, but he has to act Japanese. And so at that point, you have, like, this weird miscommunication that happens in his brain.
Yeah, and I think another large part of it is that you very much see like a difference in aura between someone like Sakurai as opposed to people like Miyamoto, who are kind of the old guard of game design, where Sakurai, you can tell, was a gamer first and foremost, and so Smash Bros. Is very much a by gamers for gamers sort of design.
Yeah.
You see that when you look at the characters that have been added to the roster, when he actually goes into detail about where each of the DLC characters were from. I mean, it's kind of one of those. I think that's really what sets Sakurai apart from Miyamoto, because Miyamoto still kind of thinks in the terms of, like something that's like fun, but still treats it as kind of like, okay, this is just meant to be a nice, mild amusement for for the players, whereas Sakurai is like, hey, let's actually make this something that gamers are going to come back to again and again, because he knows what would make him come back again and again and again.
Yeah.
And so,
Miyamoto's more in that R&D kind of mindset now, because like the last couple of games that he's been able to put out have been stuff like Star Fox Zero, where, you know, like he wants to innovate still, whereas Sakurai is like, I don't necessarily need to innovate here. We just work with what we have.
Yeah, pretty much Sakurai is like you said, Miyamoto is all about how can I innovate this or do something new, whereas Sakurai is like, okay, how can we take what we did well and make it better?
Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, I'm not going to say he's better than Miyamoto, because at one point he was like, Miyamoto was Sakurai to a lot of people. And I think part of the reason that a lot of people are making this comparison is they're comparing it to the current Miyamoto, which is older and therefore not as jump uppy and fanny as he used to be at things like E3 events. And Sakurai is that now.
Yeah, I would honestly say Sakurai wouldn't necessarily have inherited the mantle from, in terms of developers who are probably better points of comparison. I would say that Sakurai has effectively reached the status that Gunpei Yokoi had reached back in his tenure. Because Gunpei Yokoi was pretty much, he had worked for multiple companies. He was kind of like the designer du jour before he tragically passed. Yeah. And I would say Sakurai is more on the same level, if not having surpassed Yokoi at this point, and in terms of
that's
ubiquity.
Kind of the thing is, like, a lot of Japanese developers have not reached that kind of level. They've worked with like one or two other companies. Yokoi was working constantly, so at that and I think he had like a myriad of companies that he was providing tech for. So at that point, like, I love Kojima, but Kojima worked for Konami, and then he worked for himself, and then he worked for Sony, and that's about it.
Yeah, and plus that's an apples and oranges comparison, because Kojima, like, in terms of like mechanics and stuff like that, that's why I think the Yokoi comparison is a bit more apt.
It is, yeah.
Whereas Kojima, I mean, let's face it, Kojima is basically a filmmaker, except he uses video games instead of a camera. That's Kojima's style.
Look at this is Gunpei Yokoi, for US kids out there, is the James Cameron of Japan, where he's learned a number of different, or he learned, rest in peace, Yokoi-san, he learned a number of tricks, and he was able to implement them quite well, kind of like how James has been able to do that throughout his film career. And so at that point, it's not a jump to say that Sakurai is probably on that level. He's probably gained a lot of good relationships with a lot of good companies. And so that's why I'm saying I'm looking forward to his future to see what he provides next. Because Kirby's great and all, but what happens if you put him, like, if he has a brand new IP and you put it behind Capcom or Konami?
Yeah. Or alternately, he could even go full indie or be in a similar situation as Game Freak. That's what led to Tembo the Badass Elephant. So,
Exactly.
I mean, like, we're definitely looking forward to it, provided that he takes the time he needs to rest. You've done enough, Sakurai. You can go home now.
And by rest, we mean enough rest so that you can take that IV rack out of your room.
Yeah.
So,
Enough rest that you can actually eat and enjoy solid food.
Indeed. So
Yeah.
at that point, we love you, Sakurai. Please go get some rest. Do what we've been screaming that Nomura has not done. Please do what Kojima has. Well, Kojima technically did it, but Miyamoto hasn't done it. So at that point, like, go do that, and then the sky's the limit for what you want to do.
Alternately, this just popped into my head as we mentioned this. If this, like, we mentioned, like, Sakurai having to make a deal with Disney, I'm just like, what if Sakurai was made to work on Kingdom Hearts?
Crazy.
I mean, we probably would get something pretty cool out of it, but I don't think Nomura's going to let that.
Okay, here's my only problem with this. It's very clear with Smash Ultimate that Nintendo basically said, go crazy. Only if he gets Square Enix's approval to go crazy.
It's not so much Square Enix. Disney would be the main issue, and I can see Disney.
Disney's going to be involved anymore because KH4, like, the more I hear about it, they're talking about basically just making it yet another Square franchise.
Problem is, though, Kingdom Hearts is a Disney property. Like,
True.
legally and officially, Disney owns Kingdom Hearts. Square is just the co-developer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much, it would have to be Disney's blessing in it. So I can easily see Disney being like, hey, we're going to let you take this Kingdom Hearts formula and do your own thing with it, provided that you promote these specific characters, that you do these specific things. And honestly, I can see it. And honestly, I personally, and I'm probably going to get yelled at for this, for speaking as sacrilege, Nomura needs to be taken off Kingdom Hearts. Like, full stop.
No,
he has lost his way.
Off of everything. You have burned him out. Sorry,
yeah,
and you've run him into the ground. You can't get anything good out of him anymore.
No, and with Kingdom Hearts especially, considering that he's gotten so focused on telling his own story, he's lost the plot. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay.
In a lot of cases, I really wish that a lot more developers now, with where the gaming industry is going, that they had more independent companies instead of just being another cog in the machine. Because the cog in the machine, or the machine, is not going to care whether or not you are mentally there. And I have a number of reasons, a number of people to be able to cite to be able to make that argument. But the corporate machine here is just basically going to wring you dry and then throw away the husk. That's what they're going to do. And so at that point, one of the things I really hope Sakurai does here, he stays independent, and you have to hire his company to be able to do this concept kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because just because it's him, but also I do know that he has, like, a inner circle of people that he works with really, really well, and those guys have been amazing leads to be able to work with the other companies. So
yeah, and so, I mean, this is probably wishful thinking, but I'm just seriously thinking, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Disney, in some capacity, decides to hire Sakurai's company and be like, hey, we let you use Sora, come make a game for us, and honestly, even if it was the Disney tie-in, we know Sakurai would at least create something that would be fun to play.
No, it totally would be. Because that's one of the things that Sakurai has cared about the most, is gameplay. And that's why Smash has endured the way that it has. That's why so many clones want to be made. And I promise, guys, we will talk about that clone, okay? We just don't have enough time to do it tonight.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, even if it was just a reboot of Castle of Illusion under Sakurai's direction, I would want to see what that would look like.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. So, unfortunately, just because of time, we've got to move on to other things because I want to make sure that all of this gets addressed, or at least as
Gotta
much of it
move on.
possible. And there you go. You guys had your Nintendo talk, and if you want additional stuff, you can reach out to us.